November is Diabetes Awareness Month. So this month we're focusing on choosing carbohydrates that work great with diabetics. So this month we're doing a recipe with cauliflower instead of using rice. Now, a common myth I hear with diabetics is that they can't have any carbohydrates, and that's simply not true. So I'm going to focus on the healthier carbohydrates that we can have in our diets. So the healthier carbohydrates that diabetics especially want to focus in on are the whole grains. Now, whole grains are higher in fiber, which helps keep our blood sugar stable and our energy levels up. So whole grains would include brown rice, whole wheat pasta, quinoa, whole wheat bread, oatmeal. So those are the carbs we want to have in our diet. So kind of a good way to think of building a plate while you're having dinner or lunch is dividing your plate into 3 sections. Now this would be great for any diabetic or anyone who's just trying to lead a healthier lifestyle. So half of our plate would be a non-starchy vegetable. Now that would include our broccoli, cauliflower, salad greens, cucumbers, carrots, and then the other quarter of our plate we want to have a protein source. That could be chicken, fish, beef, pork. And the other quarter of our plate wants to be a grain or starch. Now that would include our potatoes, corn, and peas, and any type of grain like rice, pasta, potatoes. So just by dividing your plate into 3 sections, it's going to help you ensure portion control and make sure you're having the right portions of our foods. Now you can also throw in a side of fruits or dairy like milk, cheese. If you're working with a dietitian, we can help set up a nice carbohydrate counting plan for you, but it's kind of a good general rule of thumb while you're building your plate, just to make sure you're getting the right portions.
Welcome everybody. How you doing today? My name is Anthony Verona. I'm the Culinary Director for University Hospital's Health System. And today we're going to talk about diabetes-friendly recipes. So what does that mean? We're going to show you a couple different recipes today that's very low in sugar. We're going to talk about reduced oil usage. We're also going to talk about some 3 Gs. What are the 3 Gs? Ginger, garlic, and green onions, which is very important in our General Tso's healthy chicken that we're going to cook today. We're also going to talk about plant-forward proteins. We're going to be making a healthy cauliflower rice today instead of a regular rice, so I'm going to teach you how to make that. We're going to teach you how to stir fry, and we're also going to talk about umami. Umami is that 6th sense of enrichment. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So let's get started cooking. Okay, first of all, I want to show you how to make the cauliflower rice. Now I did this ahead of time. You can actually buy this here. We're filming at Dave's today. You can actually buy this pre-grated. But I just do it myself. So you buy a head of cauliflower, you grate it on a box grater on the biggest setting, and this is what you get. Sometimes you get a little big pieces in there. It doesn't matter. Nothing's perfect. But you want to grate it, and then we're going to saute it a little bit. So let's talk about that. So we're going to really cook here today, even though I did a few things ahead of time. We got a couple different recipes. Now I know General Tso's chicken is one of our best-selling dishes down at University Hospital Health System. Really, it's our #1 entree that we sell. But of course, you know, it might not be the healthiest thing. It's got a lot of sugar in it, has a little bit of fat, and it's probably got a lot of salt in it as well. So I'm going to teach you how to make it at home today that's very healthy. So let's get started with everything's going to start today with a little bit of onions. So I got a pan on medium heat here. I'm going to add a little bit of diced onions that I diced up earlier. And I got my heat going here. I'm going to crank it up just a little bit. We're going to get these sauteing. And as I'm going to saute this, I'm going to talk about our chicken and our vegetables that we're using today. Typically a General Tso's sauce is full of sugar. Today we're going to make a sauce that and again, for the ease of time, I'm going to show you some processes, but I'm going to show you the finished product here. Actually, we're going to puree this. But I sauteed some ginger, some fresh garlic. I put in a little bit of soy sauce, low sodium soy sauce. I put in a little bit of chicken stock, no fat, and then we're going to thicken this with pineapple. So instead of adding a ton of sugar, because when you add a lot of sugar, it actually thickens it once it cools. This, we're not going to add any thickener. Pineapple actually has an ingredient called pectin in it, which is a natural thickener, and that's really going to give the sauce a lot of body and consistency. So I'm going to saute these up a little bit. Now this is going to be for our cauliflower rice. As that's going, I'm going to start on the General Tso's chicken, or on the vegetables. And again, we're going to use very little oil in here today. Typically General Tso's, if you go out to a Chinese restaurant, it's going to be deep fried. We're not going to deep fry anything today. We are going to use a little bit of oil to saute the chicken. And I'm going to teach you a great technique on how to get it nice and crispy. Typically, General Tso's is dunked in eggs with egg yolks and egg whites. And it's got some flour in it, and it's got a lot of salt and a lot of seasonings in it. We're going to have a lot of seasonings and a lot of flavor, but we're going to reduce that fat and we're going to reduce that salt, but we're still going to get a nice crispy chicken. So we're going to let this go a little bit here. I got my pan going over here for my vegetables. So we're kind of multitasking. As that's heating up, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this sauce. So here's that sauce I talked about. Just a couple ingredients: ginger, garlic, soy sauce, some chicken stock, and some pineapples. You can see what this is going to turn into here real quick. We're going to whiz this up a little bit. Make sure this is on right. That's all we need to do there. And look at that consistency. It's nice, saucy, just like a General Tso sauce would be. All right, so here's our, now we're going to add our cauliflower rice. And again, I mentioned I did this by hand, so there's a few big chunks in there, but again, that's not a big deal. Really, you don't want to cook this a lot, okay? Typically, rice has onions, it's got some chicken stock on it in it, so we're going to cook it just like we would normally. Like a normal rice. But you're definitely not going to cook this for 20-30 minutes like a typical rice. Really, we just want to soften this. The key to this is trying to keep it nice and fluffy like rice would be. So we do want to season this with a little bit. Like I said, we're going low sodium, but we're not going no sodium. We got to season it just a little bit, okay? So we're going to give this a quick stir. Now what you can see in here is that little bit of steam that's coming off. That's important. That means we're cooking the cauliflower, and I can smell the cauliflower now. In that onions was a little bit of garlic as well. So I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it's kind of turning translucent, which is what we're looking for. Now you could take this cauliflower rice like we're making right here and turn it into a stir-fried rice like you get at a Chinese restaurant. But we're just going to keep this as like a mock white rice today. So I have some chicken stock over here. And I actually have a homemade chicken stock recipe that's in with the recipes today. And we're just going to lightly cover this just a little bit. And that's coming together real nice. I'm going to turn this on low. And we're going to let that cook for a little bit. Now, the one thing I want to do is taste this sauce that I just made. And again, I'm getting that ginger, I'm getting that garlic, I'm getting that soy sauce. Again, I added no extra sugar to this. So it might not be as sweet as a regular General Tso's, but it's sweet enough for me because pineapple obviously has sugar in it. Some natural sugars. So this is going real well. All right, next I want to talk about our chicken. So I'm going to move this up there and let that cook just a little bit more. And I want to get another pan because this is important. I did some chicken ahead of time, but I want to show you how to do this because again, this is a really important step. All right, so we're going to get a Teflon or a non-stick pan here. And we're going to get this heated up just about medium heat. There we go. All right, and I'm going to show you what the finished product looks like because it's about ready to come out of the oven. All right, now look at that. Let me show you that real quick. Nice and crispy, crunchy. I'll show you what I did. So I took some chicken breasts, okay? Anytime we're dealing with chicken, obviously I did this ahead of time, but we want to make sure that we're safe, keeping good sanitation. So I'm going to keep that raw chicken away from any of my ingredients, even though a lot of this stuff is going to be cooked. So in the recipe, you'll notice, here's the chicken, what it looks like while it's marinating, okay? What's in there? chicken breast that I've seasoned with salt and pepper. I also whipped up some egg whites. Typically in General Tso's chicken at a Chinese restaurant has the yolks in it as well, so we're reducing some fat. What happens is those egg whites, and then I folded in some cornstarch. What happens is that egg whites and cornstarch form a really nice crust. And I'm going to show you how to saute it here real quick. And again, we're not deep frying here. Just a little bit of oil. Literally, teaspoon of oil. You need a little bit so it doesn't stick. Actually, this pan is so good that it might not even stick. So I got a little bit of oil. We want to make sure that this oil starts to shimmer. That's important. And I can see it starting to shimmer just a little bit. All right. So what you can do is this chicken that I diced up, I put the whipped egg whites, 3 egg whites that I whipped up, kind of like a soft peak, or kind of like if you were making a meringue. Then I added the cornstarch and it made this kind of slurry. Looks kind of odd right now, but when you saute it, it's going to look just like this, nice and crispy. The important thing with this is you want to kind of keep it separated, all the pieces separated. This does take a little bit of time. Make sure you get that oil over there, just a little bit. Remember, a teaspoon of oil this is probably going to be 4 servings right here. So I think Melissa would agree with me that that's a suitable amount of oil for 4 people. Keep checking on my cauliflower rice over there. It's looking good. Once I get this chicken going, we're going to finish this dish. Again, if they get too clumped up and too together, they're going to stick. Not a huge big deal. You can always separate them with a pair of tongs. Non-stick pan is kind of important in this one. We're obviously trying to keep healthy, so if you're using some other type of pan that might have a little sticking, that's not good. So what I'm going to do right now is wash my hands because I'm dealing with chicken. All right. So you can see, look at that, it's nice and loose. I can tell that looking at the edges, it's just not brown enough yet. While that's going to keep cooking, we're going to move over to our vegetables. So this pan's been on medium heat. And to be honest with you, you really don't need much oil or any oil in this respect. I'm just going to add a little bit of broccoli, some red pepper. Now this isn't in the recipe, but I'm going to add a little pineapple here. Almost like a General Tso's / sweet and sour chicken. Okay? A good way to reduce some oil now to get this starting cooking. Just a tad bit of water. Again, we're really reducing down the oil. If you ever go to a Chinese restaurant and see how they're cooking, boy, they use a lot of oil. So here we go. Let's flip this over. Just needs a little bit longer. Our rice is looking good. You can see there's a little bit of moisture in there. That's fine. We're going to shut that off. We're going to let that rest. It's nice to let it sit there just a little bit. This chicken's almost ready to be flipped. Now me personally, I don't like my vegetables cooked to death, so we're just going to cook these. You can see they're starting to turn nice and green. Once they get nice and green, then we're going to be done and we're going to bring this dish together. I got a nice plate here that we're going to pan up, plate up. All right, perfect. Look at that. Can you see that over here, Robert?
No, can you look at the pan?
Sure. Look at that, nice and crispy. Now, if you touch that with your finger, obviously it's hot, but it'd be nice and crispy, because that's what General Tso's all about, right? Having a crispy piece of chicken. So we're going to flip this over. We're gonna let this cook a little bit more. Anytime you're cooking chicken, you wanna make sure it's fully cooked to 165 degrees internal temperature. Remember, this had chicken on it, so I'm gonna put this over here. I'm not gonna need to touch that anymore. But if you ever need to know what get an instant read thermometer, the supermarket, Dave's has them here. Very inexpensive, about $7. Just keep that around. Stick it in the thickest part of the chicken. Make sure it's 165 degrees. You see, I didn't use my tongs flipping the chicken. I'm using one that's non-contaminated. So this is going good. Remember, I added a lot of, there's garlic in here, there's ginger in here, there's garlic and ginger in the sauce. So really the vegetables are just kind of neutral. I'm just going to saute these up a little bit more. Switch over here. Now we're going to bring this dish together. Now in Chinese cooking, they have a technique called hot and raw, which means the vegetables are still raw, but they're nice and hot. Me personally, I like them just a little bit more cooked than that. So we're going to give this about another minute, but this is looking really good. And everybody knows when they have General Tso's, they have this sauce that's coated on it, right? Well, we're going to do that here in a little bit. All right, so I had some cooked off here. I'm not 100% sure those are done yet, so we're just going to use the ones that are cooked. We're going to add our crispy chicken into here. Not all of this. That looks good. Starting to look like General Tso's chicken, right? All right, let's plate this up. This cauliflower rice is not cooked to death. It's got that nice chicken stock in there, so it's got a lot of flavor. All right, here's our sauce. I'm going to shut the heat off here. We really don't need to cook this anymore. People at Dave's are going to love us today. All that's shut off. Now that's a big serving, but this could be a platter for 3 to 4 people. Last thing we want to do, put a little bit of green onion on top, a little bit of sesame seeds, and there you go. How's that look?
I hope you enjoyed our cooking demo today. So just to review, we focus on building a healthier plate by making half our plate a non-starchy vegetable, a quarter of our plate a protein source like the chicken we used today, and the other quarter of our plate being a grain like a rice, pasta. Now let's say you didn't like the cauliflower rice, you didn't have it on hand. You could absolutely use a grain like brown rice. It's perfectly fine, but try to aim for a quarter of your plate. Don't forget to download the handout and the recipes that go with this cooking demo. Thanks for watching.